And we're back. Louisville, day two. Welcome. We're once again bringing you just somebody else within the industry that's doing some fantastic
Not just
things.
somebody else. I mean,
We're bringing you the person when it comes to the community space and consulting within the community space. Once again, Cesar must go to Judah, manufactured home sales mastery. We've got no, it's not Tate, it's Brian.
I don't look
Brian
at it like
Hurd
Tate. I love
with
Tate.
Cardinal Financial. You guys, I mean, I'm sorry.
I know. You've been saying it, introducing us all day the last couple of days, so it's okay.
And of
He is
course,
my brother from another mother.
we're joined by Mindy Parrish Consulting, and Mindy does just about everything in the community space, right? Just to keep things in line, making sure everything's going the way that it should be going. So, Mindy, why don't you start first of all by telling everybody how you got into the business, and then why you went out and started your own consulting company.
Okay. So I got into the business really by happenstance. I was a full-time student at ASU and I needed a job with benefits, part-time job with benefits. And I landed a job in a community 4 hours a day doing their books. And it was supposed to be a part-time, gig, wasn't going to last forever. And within 6 months, it turned into a full-time job. And within 2 years, I moved into a regional role working for, at the time, they were MHC. Today, they're ELS. They had just gone public, and it was actually a really exciting opportunity because they were growing and adding communities and trying to build out ops and policies and procedures. And I was really blessed that I had a team of people that were really helpful and wanted to help us. The company wanted to grow, and the team of people that we had in the Western region, they were willing to share information and willing to teach and show me how to do things. And so I listened and I learned and I observed. And I think it was at ELS for 9 years, and I held 8 or 10 different positions because I moved from ops, administrative at a property, to regional, to sales, transactions, and back to region or to administrative, and then lease administration, learning all about rent increases and laws and leases and working with the attorneys to draft all of that. Then I moved to Hometown America, and I was there for 15 years and got to, again, a myriad of things from operations to sales to marketing to leasing, team building, right? Working with community managers and salespeople to curb appeal, community improvements, capital projects. Moved on to another company, Inspire Communities, where I spent a couple of years in a corporate role doing kind of the same thing, building out the portfolios. And the nice thing was all 3 of those community companies were small when I started, building out policies and procedures, making things more efficient, reducing costs, and trying to figure out ways that the managers could be focusing on the things that were more important, which was being out in the community, focusing on curb appeal, resident relations, and maintenance, right? Making sure the communities looked good. And so I ended up leaving and moving to a software company, of all things, Manage America, where I spent 4 years. And it was because I used the software in my previous companies. And so it seemed like a natural transition where I had the opportunity to stay in the space, keep working with the same operators that I'd already worked with, and use my skills that I'd learned in operations to help them as a software person, help them use the software to be more efficient with their day-to-day operations. And then some of it, conversations led to also just operations. And then I decided, gosh, it's time to go out and do something on my own. Yeah. And so here I am building Parrish Consulting. And my goal is to go out and help owners and operators find ways to, from, Rent Manager, Yardi, they use all these different software platforms. And so my job is to learn how to be an expert in all of those, but then help them figure out, using my experience at the previous software company, 90% of the customers that we had weren't tapping into what they were paying for. Yeah. And so my goal was to try to help them, or my goal now is to, how can I help you use the software you're already paying for to reduce the work that your team is doing, the manual entry, and just reduce. It's not even about expenses for the most part, because you got a software package that you're not using, you're already paying for it, but your team is doing manual labor, and they could be doing more things out in the property, right? Taking inspections. It's also surprising to me how many operators don't really have written policies and procedures, and so they're Managers are consistently having to come to them to ask, how do I do this? How do I do this? And if you have to ask over and over again, how do I do this? It's going to create burnout for you as an operator because
you're either not training properly,
right,
or you don't have the proper procedures in place,
or both.
Or both.
Right.
And you went through that resume. I mean, good Lord. I mean, is there anything you haven't done? But I think that
she started when she was 5.
I was waiting for that whole resume to end. It just kept going and going. And I'm like, wow, okay, I got to spice up mine a little bit. But I think that makes you very well equipped to go ahead on your own. But talk to me a little bit, because I'm completely ignorant largely on the community operator side.
Okay.
I mean, we work on a lot of developments, but you mentioned they're not tapping into. Is it mainly the technology that they're not tapping into, or talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think it's the technology. They when you purchase a property management system, it doesn't matter which one you're using. When you start using that software, there's a lot of pieces, and it doesn't matter which one you're using. Each of them have their unique, things that they offer, and they're very robust in many ways. And so there's a lot of different features and functions that you start out using A, B, and C, and then you might have had a plan to use, X, Y, and Z, but you don't, and then you just lose sight of it. And you guys don't know because you're not operators, but in your regular business, other things keep getting thrown at you, and you lose. It's not that you lose sight; you get distracted. You get distracted, and you're focused on this over here, and so you forget. Oh, I wanted to implement and use that tool. The other challenge I see is that these software companies, at no fault of their own, they create new functionality and they announce it to their customers, but the customers either are too busy to pay attention to what's happening and don't, or it's going to the wrong audience,
or they don't think they need it, or
right,
whatever the case
they don't
is.
realize, it might be an analyst that's getting the email, and the operators, they don't realize, gosh, this would really benefit our our regionals or our property managers. And so my goal is to just help, what are you using? Tell me where your pain points are, and I'll tell you if that software can do it for you, and help you get the most out of it.
How many different software companies are out there for this type of thing?
Well, there's a lot of software companies out there.
Are there just a few predominant, or is it just kind of spread all over?
There are a few that are predominant in the manufactured housing space, but there are, as I meet with people and in my experience and talking with different owners and operators, they use a variety of things, because what were 20, 30 years ago, what existed and what did they start using? And switching to a new software company, even if the one you're using is extremely painful, or and it could be because you're not using it adequately, or you're not
doing its fullest
you're not using it to its fullest extent, but maybe it's because you've outgrown it and you need a more robust software platform. Making that switch is huge, because it's a lot of data entry and you already don't have the bandwidth in many cases to manage your day-to-day. So to think about taking that on is really stressful. And so a lot of people just don't do it. We're just going to continue with what we have.
Right.
And so that's where I can come in, and our team can help manage the data transfer and get you onto that new software. And in some cases, evaluate, again, where are your pain points?
Sure.
Does that software offer you what you need? And here's some recommendations. You make the decision. I always tell them, it's not my job to tell you what you need. It's my job to tell you what is out there. You make the decision, and then we'll help you transfer onto that, or transition onto that platform.
And one of the things that also is, and the reason we're doing this is, obviously we want to make sure that the industry is moving forward in the direction that it should be, right? We're on that cusp. We're on that cusp right now of this could just potentially explode in a huge way, exponentially across the board, across the country, in the right way.
Right.
If communities and retailers start moving in the direction they need to be, right? So we're talking a lot about what I call the back end stuff, right? The front end being the sales, the back end, everything that you're talking about. But how does having those policies, those procedures, the right software, everything in place benefit the buyer?
Because you have better run communities. So I'm going to do a terrible job of this, because he just did an amazing job. But one of the first, when I went to work for Hometown, the founder of Hometown gave a speech about the three-legged stool, that you have your residents, your investors, and your employees. And if you imagine that's a three-legged stool, and if you upset one of them and you have a broken leg,
fall over.
you know, you fall over and there's nothing you can do about it. And so, and again, he said it much more eloquently, but I believe that moment I realized this is not just, I didn't just come into this job to work here. It was a company that I believed in, and his thought process, you know, he embraced it, and they practiced that in the community. And I think when you have happy employees, you have happy residents. And that starts with your community looking good, having the right training and guidance and support so that your employees feel supported and they're confident enough in their jobs. And so then the residents feel that and they see that. And the rest of it, your investors are going to be happy, right? Your community looks good. Your sales team is doing well because everybody feels coached and trained and supported. And so the documentation, the processes, and the procedures are critical. You've got to have clear, defined policies. And if you don't, you wind up with, you try to do reports from one region or one property. When you have more than one community, they're not doing things the same way. You're not comparing apples to apples. And so it just makes your job 10 times harder. So I think that it is important. All of that back end stuff has to be in place so that your sales team and your community looks good. And right. I used to say, we set the stage. You guys come in and you play the parts, and we set the stage for you.
Yeah. So I want to ask a little bit, pardon me, Cesar, a little bit about, dig deeper on the technology, because I haven't heard it. Everybody says the manufacturing space needs more technology, needs more digital presence, that sort of thing. But nobody seems to have really traveled too far down that path. So, you know, and I'm speaking, you know, Cardinal specifically, we have a CEO that created a program called Octane. Octane is our LOS system. You know, we're blessed to have it internal. It's a proprietary system. We have the engineers to do it. We're moving to the point where we've got AI doing a lot of those back-end systems. I'm curious to know if things like AI are starting to kind of filter into the systems and the software programs that you're working on for these communities.
They are. In fact, Rent Manager is a good example. This year, they launched something called Orion. So lots more to come on that. And I'm not going to pretend to be an expert because I don't. I'm still learning about it. Yeah. And I see a lot of opportunity for AI. I mean, there is a lot of technology out there for the MH space. And there's a lot of multifamily technology that will also work in, and I'm not talking about a property management software. I'm talking about automated touring or you know, streamlining the touring schedule so that you have a video camera with a keypad in your front door, and they're walking in, there's cameras inside, you're scheduling them, you're giving them a code, they're coming in to do their tour, and they're coming out, they're scheduling it on a website. You don't need human interaction to do all of that. And you can take that to the extreme where they never see a human, or, you know, at least they're scheduling the tours and not having to call it. They put in, contact us now. Then they wait 24 to 48 hours to get an email. There's more ways that you can make that more efficient.
And it's not that we want to replace that human touch. Again, it's just like on our side. I mean, if we can underwrite a loan in a matter of minutes and seconds as opposed to, you know, hours and days, you know, we still want to have that human interaction with our clients, but it makes it more efficient so they're not having to wait. Right. For those sites.
Well, and think about it. When you go and buy a car, you don't want to go talk to the salesperson right away. I want to look at the car. I know what I want. I personally just bought a house in 2023. I knew what I wanted. I picked out the floor plan. I had everything all specced out. I mean, obviously I couldn't pick colors and all of those things because I had to wait to go to the auto home. But when I walked in, I said to him, I want this lot and this house. When can I put my money down? And he was like, oh my God, you are like the easiest customer I've ever had. That's the experience that people are looking for. You definitely do not want to take the human piece out of it because, you know, with all the application fraud and things, you need to make sure, and you got to verify that person is that person before they move in. But your buyer wants ease of, they don't want to go through hoops and wait 48 hours. They want to see that house right now. I want to know, I want to book it and see they're available at 2:30. Oh, I can do it by myself, even better. Right? They want that comfort level to come in and do it, or maybe they do want to see a salesperson, right? You have different profiles of customers. I think we need to be able to cater to all of those.
And it frees up the back end, you know, process. Like we were talking to Thomas yesterday, you know, what his company does. I mean, being able to service the client on the back end of the process, you know, you have resources that are freed up to do that, you know, because if the upfront part piece is really, really seamless, really easy, really efficient, but, you know, if problems always come up, they always arise, that's where I think the human interaction on the backside and having those resources available become really, really important.
Exactly. Well, and to just on the sales side, you have a lot of communities that don't have enough volume to have a dedicated salesperson. So you have a community manager trying to wear the hat of a salesperson, and they've got a lot of hats that they wear. They've got a lot of responsibilities to take care of. So the more you can automate things for them,
Right.
the more efficient they're going to become. And they're going to see that as an investment in them. And you want, like, it's an investment in your community, but your employees will feel like, wow, they're trying to do this to make me more efficient. And so I just feel like they become more, when done right, they become more efficient, and you end up with, again, communities that look great, residents that are happy, employees that are happy, and investors that are stoked to own that community.
It builds that employee loyalty, which reduces turnover, which produces a better community,
Right.
because that community manager is better engaged, is better mood.
They know what they're
Stronger
talking
resident
about. They know what the policies and
Exactly.
procedures are. Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
it's definitely, I can see the full benefit there. I mean, when we work with community companies, we do things on the community side as well, in working with the property managers to help them be more efficient with the sales process so they can focus on these things they've got to do. One of the things we touch on a lot is that time management, because we know they have all of these different hats they have to wear, like you just described it. But being able to streamline some of those things, and we work with them on that. But if the software, the technology is there, or it starts to be developed, it's definitely going to make things easier. So switching gears, where do you see the community space fitting in on providing a better buying experience for the public, the mass public across the country?
Where do I see it fitting in?
How do you see it being a part of the mix? Because we've been in sessions about developers coming into the industry. We know we've got the retailers, and communities have always been there, right?
Right.
But now communities aren't just like the homes aren't what they used to be.
Right.
Communities aren't what they used to be.
Right.
Yes, you still have the ones that were built way back when that are there, and they haven't been worked on. But the majority of these companies that you mentioned, Inspire, ELS, we met some others, Endeavor and things. They're doing something different with it. So, how does a community space fit in this?
So I think it really depends on the buyer, the profile of the buyer, because you really, everybody wants something different. Not everybody can go out and afford to buy a piece of land and put that beautiful Franklin on their land.
Yeah.
And so not everybody wants to live in an apartment where you have somebody above you and below you, and you got to worry about noise. In a manufactured home community, you have a space that's your own. You have your own parking space. You don't have to worry about a parking garage. In some cases where communities allowed it, you have a yard where you can put your dogs and your kids can play, and you can put their toys out there. I think the community environment just offers, in 55 plus communities, they offer that community lifestyle. Most of them have, pretty spectacular amenities where the 55 plus community can engage with one another, sports, activities, etc. And so I think that it offers something to the buyer regardless of the type of community you're looking for.
Right.
Because there's some that don't even have amenities, but you still want that community feeling. You feel like you're in a tight-knit area where people are looking out for you, your neighbors, you're closer. Apartments are different. If you've ever lived in an apartment, I never ever felt close to any of my neighbors because they were above me and I never saw them, right? Maybe the guy next to me, but I never knew the people below or above. Whereas in a manufactured home community, you're driving in the same place, you're walking, you're out in the community together. And so I just think the community, a manufactured home community, offers the buyers a place where, they can call home that is much more inviting than an apartment or, again, because they can't typically afford to go out and buy a big chunk of land and put a beautiful manufactured home on it.
So I'm curious, we work on a lot of large scale developments, for land home, we're traditionally sold and financed and whatnot, just like you would a site build.
Right.
But one of the things I've heard multiple times in the last 48 hours is that new traditional communities, the amount of new ones over the last decade have been dramatically reduced.
Right.
And I don't really understand exactly why that is. I mean, I look for our business. We love that there's new communities of people that are actually purchasing and financing the land and home. But I'm curious why there's such a slowdown on traditional.
So, this is me speculating and some knowledge of what I've heard over the years. But I think a lot of it is zoning. A lot
Sure.
of areas aren't interested in putting, they have this stigma about the trailer park and they don't want that in their community. And that's something I think MHI is doing an amazing job of trying to advocate for us. I think there's also a lot of owners and operators out there, big ones, small ones, whatever, that don't want to invest in the development. It's expensive, right? That's not what they do. They got in to operate and it's collecting the rent, and so I think it's a mix of all of those. It's nice to see companies today that are developing and see the need for that. And so you're right. In the last 10 years, there hasn't been much. I don't even know how many. I think Texas has more than I know of.
I mean, the number was
any other
was
state
staggeringly low. I was
Right.
really surprised. Whereas the number of typical, similar to site built communities has been skyrocketing.
right.
So yeah, it's been interesting to hear.
It would be really nice if we could see more new developments.
For sure.
New
And I think
opportunities.
it's coming. I think it's coming over the next probably 24, 36 months where we'll see more of them start popping up just because of the need.
Well, and I think with the new homes that they're building, the dual duplexes, the
Right.
quadplexes, we'll see a lot of more unique community opportunities. I
Right.
was speaking with somebody yesterday about, creating like I don't want to say a caregiving facility, but where it's a community where you've got it's a 2-bedroom on one side and a 1-bedroom on the other. So maybe it's maybe you have a couple of those and you have people that are living and you bring in 3 or 4 nurses that they live there and help. And so she's trying to think outside of the box and figure out ways that use
awesome.
manufactured housing to give people freedom, but affordability. And so
Right. And I think one of the things, Cardinal and there's a lot of other good mortgage companies out there as well that, what we would like to see is more of these community operators use traditional financing. I think there's a misnomer that you can't do traditional financing on a land lease. Well, you can. Now, granted, the municipality has to consider it real property, that sort of thing has to be permanently affixed. But it's a really good opportunity because you have developers that say, hey, I want to realize the profit off the home itself,
right.
but I also want that mailbox money every month. That is possible. You can do conventional financing on it.
Yeah.
Not there's anything wrong with chattel, but having the opportunity to get a traditional mortgage, 30-year fixed, it is doable.
Right.
We just like to see more of it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Mindy, I know you're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to community space and consulting and being able to help out. So anybody out there considering, I know most of everybody knows who Mindy is. All right. But for those that may not, how can they reach out to you?
I have a website, mindyparish.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, appreciate you taking the time.
Appreciate the
I
conversation.
very much appreciate the invitation.
It's always great talking to you.
You as well.
All right.
Thank you both.
All right, folks. So there you have it. Mindy Parish Consulting. You got questions. If you've got an existing community or maybe you're wanting to get into the community space, she's the
Or
person
just
you
throw it
reach
in the
out to.
chat, comment, like, share, all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
There you go. All right. We'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.